Okay, Vaughn, let's get down to business. We lost contact with the outpost some 5 hours ago. Now, the recon team we dropped in has gone missing as well. You've got to find that outpost, track down those recon boys, and then report back to me. Understood?
Yes, sir. Can you tell me what's waiting for me, sir?
Cyborgs, lots of them. And alien activity. Alien flyers are everywhere. I guess your best bet for getting across the city is using the old train network.
Excuse me, sir. We're going to have to let the lieutenant down here.
Nearly time, Vaughn. I'll be watching the output of your implant with Dr. Carter. We'll be with you as much as we can.
Evening, Riley. Don't forget, I'll be providing you with any intelligence on the enemy that I can offer.
Thanks, Dr. Carter. Okay, time to roll. Vaughn out.
The PlayStation 2 came out in the year 2000. By then, many people had already moved away from the PlayStation. There were people like me who still had the PlayStation 1 and wanted new games. Sony must have heard our cries because they released C-12 Final Resistance for the PlayStation 1 in North America in 2002, but it did see an earlier release in Europe in April 2001. As a product developed and published by Sony Computer Entertainment, it's their last first-party title for the first system. Strangely, I cannot recall where I first saw gameplay or heard about this one. Usually I can tell you what my first experience was of a game and where I first heard about it. I must have rented it or played it at a friend's house. I don't know. It wasn't until a few years ago that I actually found the game complete in box for $1 in really nice condition at a small thrift store. The cashier acted like I just got away with murder, getting a video game for so cheap. This was at the tail end of COVID, where every second-hand shop viewed video games as a goldmine. The game is a third-person shooter that starts with an alien invasion. You play as Lieutenant Riley Vaughn, who is set on a recon mission to take out the aliens, rescue soldiers, and get as much intel as possible. You have Colonel Grisham and Dr. Carter in your ear set as radio buddies to tell you important bits of information throughout each mission. Usually I'm not a fan of the radio buddy mechanic, but it's not too bad here. The atmosphere in C-12 Final Resistance is a highlight. Dark and brooding, it reminds me of Silent Hill, without the fog, set in the future, and without the terrifying creepy monsters. You're a one-man army with guns you can pick up and a really cool alien sword that's there for melee attacks if you happen to run out of ammo or want to conserve what ammo you have left.
There you go. Thanks. Vaughn to base. I've got a man down in Sector 34F. We need a medical backup team in here to get him out. Over?
Loud and clear, Recon 2. Will do. Over and out.
Not only are you meant to kill enemies and save your surviving comrades, but you solve environmental puzzles to get through to the next area. For example, you need to take the train to the next mission, but the train's not active. You must find the access panel, get the correct server working, and power it up before you can get back to the station and take the train. They aren't anything crazy, but it mixes up the gameplay enough to feel like C-12 is not just a one-trick pony. The puzzles may take some time to figure out sometimes. Progression can also be confusing since there are no arrows telling you where you're supposed to go. There is a point in which you collect explosives to blow up a particular spot to get to the first boss. There is no indication where you're supposed to plant the explosives. But a little jogging around led me to find where we're supposed to be done. Standard stuff for games of the era. Graphically, C-12 is really good for a late PS1 title. I say late since this was the last first-party Sony offering. The PlayStation lived on for another couple of years, with the last game coming out in late 2004. Lieutenant Vaughn feels pretty good to move around most of the time. Many third-person shooters on the system had tank controls, meaning you had to press the left or right buttons to turn your character in a specific direction, then press the up button to go in that direction. Not here. He moves around freely with the thumbstick. Now, the game's controls can be a bit of a blessing or a curse. For example, aiming and using the camera can be hit or miss. It's nice the game auto-locks onto enemies and allows you to even detect and shoot some on ledges. But sometimes you lock onto the wrong enemy when you should take out a turret rapidly opening fire at you. Or, if you're in a small space, the camera doesn't quite set you up for success. You might start a mission and the camera faces you to the side instead of facing the enemy right in front of you. You can control the camera using the right thumbstick, but sometimes you won't have time to fire and you die because you can't see where the enemies are. Now, the biggest issues I have are two specific things. One, the crouch and climb buttons are the same, meaning you will take heavy fire and you're just sitting there doing squats in front of something you're meant to climb, and it leads to your death. And two, when you die, the game kicks you back to the main menu. This is a game that was made in 2002, so you'd imagine this wouldn't be a thing by this point. There are save spaces scattered across the world, so you'd think the game would just send you to one of those as checkpoints. I guess not.
We know of these alien tanks. They're used by the aliens to transport cyborgs about the city. Be careful. They're very heavily armed and can unleash fearsome firepower.
Even though the majority of gamers had already moved on to the PS2, I would wager of those who did give this game a try, they probably set the controller down and walked away. I think it's a shame C-12 Final Resistance was so close to being a really good game, but it simply fell short in areas it couldn't afford to. Critics in 2002 gave it mixed reviews, saying it was a painfully average action game, though they did praise the graphics considering the aging hardware. Although the game and its controls are clunky, if you have patience and perhaps reference playthroughs on the internet, there is some fun to be had, I'm sure. But when the difficulty spikes out of nowhere, and I'm getting sent to the main menu time and time again, it quickly wore down on my patience. I feel the game would be much better if the big alien robot was not even in the game, or at the very least, saved as the final boss. If you ever say an alien robot should not be in a game, that tells you right there you messed up somewhere along the way, because I want giant alien robot assault mechs in every game. C-12 Final Resistance is an unsurprisingly cheap game, and can normally be found for about $5. At that price, it's not a terrible purchase. If you like movies like Aliens or The Terminator, you'll likely enjoy the vibe of C-12. But be ready to battle the controls and occasional difficulty spikes.